Autism in ancient times. Now we've got a very interesting video today. So welcome to our deep dive into history, where we'll explore a fascinating question. Could some of the most influential figures of ancient times have been on the autism spectrum? Now, while autism is a relatively modern diagnosis, behaviors and characteristics that align with it have existed throughout history. Well, that's the premise anyway. So today we'll examine the lives of key historical figures, from philosophers, artists and leaders whose unique traits, often misunderstood, might reflect what we now recognize as autism. So join us as we uncover how their divergent ways of thinking may have shaped the course of human history, and how these traits were viewed in ancient society. Now remember, this is education mixed with entertainment. So with that being said, let's analyze this train of thought accordingly. Now imagine being born in ancient Greece, Egypt or Rome, an era without the concept of autism or neurodiversity. And let's say you're an intellectual genius, but your social behavior doesn't quite align with those around you. You struggle with eye contact, obsess over patterns, and communicate in ways that feel unconventional. In a world that thrives on conformity, how would society view you? In this video, we'll journey back in time to unravel how ancient cultures might have interpreted behaviors we now associate with autism. So stay tuned as we cover or uncover the fascinating and often misunderstood stories of history's possible neurodivergent minds. So in today's world, we understand autism as part of the neurodiversity spectrum, a way of thinking that's different but equally valuable. However, in ancient times, the concept of neurodiversity, it just didn't exist. What if some of the great minds of the past exhibited traits that we now recognize as autistic? Could their unusual behaviors, incredible focus, or struggles with social norms have shaped the way history remembers them? Again, in this video, we'll look at historical figures from ancient times who may have been misunderstood through a modern lens, particularly as we explore characteristics often associated with autism. Let's delve into the past and see how neurodivergence might have influenced ancient societies. Part 1. Pythagoras, the mathematician obsessed with numbers. Okay, so let's start with Pythagoras. So Pythagoras is the ancient Greek mathematician and philosopher. And Pythagoras was deeply obsessed with numbers and patterns, because he believed numbers held the key to understanding the universe. And he surrounded himself with like-minded individuals, forming a community that practiced strict rituals. So according to historical accounts, Pythagoras avoided social interactions, practiced extreme diets, and had an obsession with harmony and order. So if we look at Pythagoras' behaviors through a modern lens, these are traits that could potentially be linked to autism. His intense focus on patterns and systems, his desire for routine, and his withdrawal from social settings align with characteristics often observed in individuals on the autism spectrum today. In ancient Greece, these traits were seen as part of his genius, but they also made him an enigmatic and isolated figure. Was Pythagoras simply eccentric, or could he have been neurodivergent, misunderstood by his contemporaries? Part 2. The case of Socrates. Now, a different way of communicating another potential case of misunderstood neurodivergence in history is the philosopher Socrates. Known for his method of questioning everything, Socrates often frustrated people with his relentless pursuit of knowledge through dialogue. Many accounts describe his unusual way of interacting with people and his disregard for social norms. also his tendency to focus intensely on abstract ideas. Socrates was not interested in small talk or pleasantries. In fact, he preferred to walk barefoot through the streets of Athens, engaging people in philosophical discussions that often made them uncomfortable. This bluntness, combined with his single-minded focus on intellectual pursuits, could be viewed as evidence of autistic traits today. What ancient Athenians saw as strange, even submersive, might have never be understood as a different form of communication, but one deeply rooted in neurodivergence. Part 3. Archimedes, the brilliant but unconventional thinker. Let's turn to Archimedes, who is the legendary mathematician and inventor. Known for shouting Eureka upon discovering the principle, I always struggle with pronouncing this, buoyancy. Archimedes' life was filled with extraordinary focus on problem solving. His ability to see the world in terms of mathematical formulas and his capacity to fixate on single problems for long periods were remarkable. Ancient sources describe him as socially distant, more interested in his work than in people. In fact, Archimedes was so absorbed in his studies that he allegedly ignored an invading Roman soldier. Until it was too late, leading, unfortunately, to his untimely death. This intense focus on a single topic to the exclusion of everything around him is a behavior commonly associated with autism today. And his people, or his community, saw him as a genius, but we might now recognize signs of neurodivergence in his obsessive concentration and disconnection from social surroundings. So let's talk about the story of Hypatia of Alexandria. Apologies if there's been a mispronunciation. So Hypatia, the brilliant philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer of ancient Alexandria, was highly respected for her vast knowledge and teaching abilities, but her intellectual independence set her apart in a society where women were often excluded from academic life. Hypatia's deep focus on her work and her reluctance to engage in social norms, this made her a target. And unlike her male counterparts, Hypatia's behaviors were often scrutinized, and eventually she was accused of being a witch, an accusation rooted in misunderstanding her intelligence and misunderstanding her singular focus on her work. In today's terms, Hypatia's hyper-focus combined with her social isolation might suggest traits of neurodivergence. Her tragic death is a powerful example of how society historically misunderstood individuals who didn't fit into conventional roles. Conclusion. From Pythagoras to Hypatia, history is filled with examples of individuals whose unique ways of thinking shaped the world, even if their behaviors were misunderstood. And while we can never definitively diagnose historical figures with autism, examining their lives through the lens of neurodivergence allows us to appreciate how different ways of thinking have always existed and contributed to human progress. Their stories challenge us to rethink the narratives of the past and offer a more inclusive understanding of what it means to be human. So that is the end of the video. If you want to support the channel, like, subscribe and watch the content. I repeat, if you want to support the channel, like, subscribe and watch the content. Also, as some of you know, I have a social enterprise called Neuro Expression. If you want to check that out, click the link in the description and download the free PDF called What is Dyspraxia? And with that being said, I sincerely hope you enjoyed the content.